Hello. So I'm back on the experience of the float tank, and I wanted to share that with you. So I did it before when I was driving there in the car. Just some thoughts about what to be expected or what I was expecting from it. And I think it's useful now to just at least capture this moment. I think before it disappears, of what this feels like to do a float tank for the first time. So, firstly, I think my expectations before I came in was that this was going to help to resolve some inner conflict or gain a greater sense of clarity, as well as I'm a bit of an experimenter. I do like to try new things and step into the face of fear with new challenges. So this is certainly something that I wanted to explore and was just going to let the experience ride over me. I just didn't know what to expect, so I had to go with it. So I went to a centre not too far away from Carlisle here, a wonderful one called Christie, and shown the ropes, shown what was the setup was. It was like a little tank in the middle of a room that's very well heated, had a shower and everything, and almost looked like and yeah, so you're left to your own devices in this room, and you had two little buttons, one to close the lid of the pod, one for the little lights, so you could turn off the lights inside, and of course the big panic button on the right hand side. I didn't ask if anybody had used that, but it'd be quite interesting to find out. And a little spray bottle of purified water in case you've got salt water in your eyes, so that the whole bathtub is full with thick salt, so you can actually float in it. So it's obviously not nice if you get that in your eyes. So yeah, I took the shower, went into this pod, made myself comfortable, and then hit the button, and the lid starts closing. It's quite daunting, I think. You're kind of stepping into the unknown, and it almost felt a bit like one of those sci-fi movies where the humans are suspended in animation while the spaceship hurtles through space at light speed. I felt like I was going to be cryogenically frozen or something. Um, so yeah, the lid closes, get comfortable, and it's quite strange actually to just float there. I don't know if any of you have ever floated in salt water before or been like at the Dead Sea. It's just kind of you don't have to struggle to stay afloat. You're just afloat, and so you lie there for a little while, and of course your mind starts racing, and you try to almost force the sensation to happen. You want to start exploring those things, and for me, I was like trying to, getting that state by breathing, by focusing on my sensations, which just really wasn't happening. And as soon as I stopped paying attention to that, that's when I kind of got into the zone a little bit more. And it's like progressive. It's like it starts a little bit and it gets further and deeper and deeper. And I think the first thing that you notice is the sensations in your body where there is pain. Um, a word of warning that I was given before I stepped into the tank was that you feel pain initially that maybe you weren't expecting, and it kind of dies off. So it comes and goes with your awareness. And I immediately felt like the pain in my neck. I felt pain, odd bits of pain here and there, and things I'd never felt before. Like, it's amazing how these things just go unnoticed. And yeah, so this pain came and it went, and my mind started racing to different things, bouncing around, and eventually start bringing up like an emotion or thought or feeling of interest. And it's a bit like meditation when um, you're trying to bring focus to that, because you can get carried away in all the other thoughts. And my mind was certainly racing at this point. There was a lot of things that kind of came, and then they went, came, and they went. And that's okay as well. But what I decided to do after some some trippy stuff as well. So I did feel like at one point I was in an ocean, like floating on the top of an ocean, and I didn't know what was beneath me. And I don't like being in an open water. I've swam in open waters before, and it gets me really uncomfortable because there's that fear factor of what's underneath me. I don't know what's there. It's unknown, and that scares the shit out of me. And that fear was really brought to life when I was floating there. Firstly, I was like, "Oh, shark's gonna bite my butt." um, yeah, but what I decided to do as these sensations and feelings were rising and falling, I was focusing using a practice that my friend Nibras had introduced called emotional freedom technique. It's where you focus on specific parts of the body, and then you try to see what things that brings up in your mind. Because the idea is that there's a connection between what you're feeling in the body and the thoughts that are going on in your head, and they're quite interconnected. So I started listening to my body, and of course, your body is suspended. You eventually kind of lose sensations in your legs, your arms, your abdomen, and I started noticing real pain in my heart area. So I decided to explore that. I focused in on it, and it was like it was so powerful that it was almost like opening Pandora's box. So there was something locked in here in the heart, and I opened that up, and it was like all these feelings of expectation, of external requirements, of things I should be doing, was just all of these feelings was just locked in here, and it surfaced, and it surfaced so physically that I can't explain it. It was just incredible. It was like emotions. I was crying actually at one point. Um, that as these expectations were coming to the surface, there's so much emotion, feeling, and as I explored that more, I kept going, I kept digging, and eventually, that pain, it just kind of disappeared, but it moved up into my neck, and I felt it in my neck, and it was like all around here, kind of this throbbing pain. So I explored that, and again, it was feelings of um, like you're not good enough. So these limiting beliefs were caught um, in this area, and I'm digging that, and it's bringing up like very visual experiences of things that have happened in my life that are reinforcing of those things, of that limiting belief. And of course, you explore it further and further, and it just eventually just disappears, and it moves again. The sensation moves further up the neck, and then this time it starts moving between the neck and the heart. It's quite strange. And after exploring it further, it gets smaller and smaller, and it eventually lodges itself into my Adam's apple. And I can feel it just in the corner, but it's very, very difficult to pinpoint. And the emotion, the when I finally kind of dug into it, it's almost like it's just scratching until you hit that little nerve. And what that brought out was something that I was just not expecting at all. And I don't want to discuss that with you here. I've discussed quite a lot. I've opened up a lot, but I think that was quite personal, so I want to keep that personal. And eventually, that it still is still lingering. Even now, if I think about it, it's still there. It's eventually disappeared, and it was interesting before we had this. Uh, Before I kind of went ahead with the session, I was talking to Christine about the 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 fact that I identified myself as an empath, and she's also identified herself as an empath, and we were saying how empaths often absorb all the emotions of the people that they talk to. So they're really good people to, they're good listeners, but the real suffering of the empath is actually you take on board a lot of the negative energy of somebody else. It sounds a bit woo woo, but that basically means that if you are a person who is really anxious all the time and nobody seems to be listening to you, and then suddenly you engage with an empath, it feels like a release because you're telling somebody about these real pains that you've got, and the empath is looking at that situation and going, right, okay, I get it, I understand your perspective and I can feel that, and it's almost like you're not alone. There's a connection happening there, but as a result, the empath is almost creating a reality like the anxiety person with anxiety, so it's adopting a lot of these negative emotions, and that can be negative on the empath because you carry these emotions for the rest of the day unless you find a way to release them. And it was interesting we had this conversation before I jumped in the tank because it got me thinking about a few things. Obviously, a few things in my subconscious got lodged and were released in this session. So what was I thinking here? Again, emotional freedom technique focused on, excuse me, focused on my jaw, which was very, very, it was stiff. And I've had this pain ever since I was about 16 years old. And this pain happens uh, predominantly in social situations of high intensity. So um, if I'm talking to you, maybe about a very deep intellectual subject, or you're quite a difficult person to engage with, or I'm just generally feeling anxious about something, I'm, I'm somehow this stress is being concentrated in my jaw area. So I get a lot of jaw ache, and it comes and goes. It doesn't happen for weeks. Some other times it's like it's on all the time. And for some reason this didn't happen for a long time, but then it just came back during this session. And so I focused on that pain. And every time I focused on that pain, it was quite interesting. Like my mind would just go off, almost like on a daydream, like having as if you've fallen into a sleep. But I was not in a sleep. I was still kind of conscious, well, semi-conscious. And every time I focused on the jaw, the same thing happened. Focus away, focus away, focus away. And as soon as I said, my mind is actually trying to deter me from like getting into this pain. What is that? I've put my 100% attention. I really, really focused hard into it, and I found it was unprovoked, not even trying to recall these memories, but it was just like face after face after face of people that I'd met and people I still know, who the people I still, engage with on a regular basis, who I'd met for the first time. This is really important. Every first relationship that I had with these people was coming to mind, and it would be obviously there was something happening in this first instance that's locking a feeling in my jaw, and I immediately kind of put one and two together, and I thought, if that is the case, if I'm an empath and I'm locking this energy in my jaw, the first instance of every interaction is pulling all that energy in there, and I'm having all these visions of people that I meet for the first time repeating over in my head, or like there's a new person, new person, new person, new person, new person. I'm feeling all those memories that I'm having in here. It was really bizarre. It's really quite profound. So um, yeah, and after this exploring these pains, I was wondering how long I was in the tank for, and you kind of lose concept of time because you haven't got a watch. You're just floating there. You know, time's not. You can't really tell whether there's external stimuli saying, okay, the sun's gone down a little bit, or you just kind of go with the flow. To be honest, um, and so at this point, I was kind of coming back to my senses. I was coming back to the surface, and I wanted to explore kind of this because I used to do meditation where I could breathe and give my whole body energy. It's really quite amazing if you can do it. It's like just mind blowing. But you can energize your body just by breathing, and it takes a lot of practice to get to that stage. And I tried it in the tank, and it worked. I think if I was practicing this maybe week on week, I'd have really good sensation here, like building this positive energy, and you could feel it all over your skin. It's great. Yeah. And then at this point, the the door opened, and out I got. And it's really amazing as well. Like you've been suspended in this water for, the best part of 1 hour, and when you get up, you realize you've not been recognizing how much weight you've had, floating there, and you try to get up, but it's really difficult at first. You're like, yeah, oh man, my body is actually really heavy, and your senses are heightened as well. Like while you're floating there in the tank, if you touch ever so slightly the side, you can feel it. You're just like immediate focus on that awareness. So when you get out the tank, you open your eyes, or you see, when the lights come on, you see, everything's new, everything's fresh. You almost feel like you're being born again. It's that surreal, and everything that you touch is so much more tactile, and yeah, it's always difficult to describe these things as well because English is so limited, or maybe my interpretation of English, my English language is so limited that I can't describe it using the vocabulary that I've got. So yeah, having a shower at the end, washing all this salt water off. I managed to get some in my eyes as well. I was like, oh, it's painful. But feeling all these things is just brings you back to reality, and brings you back to this, um, brings you back to your body. I guess that's what it is. Yeah. And so I guess what I learned from this whole experience was that, firstly, the deprivation tanks, sensory deprivation, float tanks, whatever you want to call it, fantastic experience. If you want to um, lift open the Pandora's box, so you have, not many people want to do this, and I take my hat off to anybody who even has the notion of exploring themselves in this way. But it seems like a very light and comfortable way to do it, at least from my perspective. You open the box a little bit, and you see what's inside. You maybe remove some of that negativity, or fill it with positivity. Um, it softened me. I think one thing I got out of it, like I feel much more. Um, uh, yeah, I don't feel as tensed up. And I was noticing as well, after I had released these emotions from my heart, it's still here in my neck a little bit. I need to explore that. But I could feel on the drive home that when I knew that these expectations were filling my heart with this pressure, I could immediately associate with it. So I'm driving home, some jackass behind me is coming really, really close to the back of my car, obviously wants me to speed up. Like, there he is. That's what he's trying to do. Okay. I'm going to keep driving. And I did not let that bother me because I felt it. I felt like there was a little sting here in the heart because this guy was here, and just cut it off. As soon as you have that awareness, brilliant, fantastic. So I think also the tank is profound because it erodes that inner conflict. So anything that's going on in here, and if you've never tapped into here before, I think that's a worthwhile activity to do. Because I thought I had it figured out. I thought my problems are really small. There's nothing in here that I'm not afraid to look at, and that's true. But when I looked at it, it looked a lot different from the way that I thought it was. And I think if I kept digging, I would find even more. So it's good to start to get that inner clarity and, yeah, erode this conflict. So I highly recommend this. And if you're dropping by Cumbria anytime, I have a recommendation for you. Yeah, so it would be great to know if any of you have had experiences similar to this, or you've experienced the sensory deprivation tank yourself, or you've had any kind of psychedelic experiences. Maybe that's the next level to this, is exploring through through drugs or through hallucinogenic chemicals or anything that kind of takes you down that route of the inner discovery. I think that would be really interesting to know. So I put that back to you. Any experiences you've had, please share them. And put yourself on video as well, guys. Blimmin' heck, it's me putting myself out all the time. It's your turn now. You gotta put yourself out. It feels brilliant just having a space to talk. And I know that you're listening, and I really appreciate that. And I'm ready to listen back because I'm an empath, and now I understand. This is another thing. So the chakras. This is the insights that I got from Christine at the end of this after reflecting. So the chakras, just to take a small tangent before we finalize, are the points of energy throughout your body. And she said that the chakras that you were focusing on here is this one of love. So the love is coming from the heart. So this is obviously where these expectations were. I wasn't receiving the love because I had these conflicts that I was required to do things in order to get this love, but I don't really need that. And also this chakra is around the neck area, is to do with communication, interestingly. So I've got off a huge tangent, and I do apologize for that. So she was talking about the chakras, but then she was also talking about the idea of empathy, engaging with empathy, and if you're an empath and like me, if I'm storing that negative energy in my body, in my jaw, then she said a few techniques to help to resolve that. So one of them is actually to almost visualize a bubble around you, and within that bubble you are taking in positive energy from a conversation that you're having, presence with somebody else, and you're letting the negative energies bounce off that bubble. So, and this is one way that you can almost visualize the conversation and absorb the best parts of it. And then to remove the negative energy, almost imagine having a shower. Well, not imagine, actually having a shower at the end of the day, and allowing the water to almost cleanse you from all that negative energy that you've experienced. So coming through your head, the negative energy then is coming out, seeping out, and then it's flowing down you, and then out, and then down to the drain. It's like flowing back out of you. So I'm saying I'm an empath, and I'm saying also to communicate to me. So I would like to engage empathetically through the medium of video because um, now I know how to a few techniques there to how to engage without building this stress within myself. Um, because this is my nature. I want to help. I want to communicate. I want to give value to your life as much as you give value to mine, and um, I'd be interested in testing that out. So thank you for listening. I've realized that that is well over 25 minutes. That's crazy. If you've listened for this long, I am going to give you a massive hug and buy you a coffee. Come and see me for a coffee. All right. So, guys, have a great day. Do some soul searching and get yourself down to an isolation tank and have the time of your life. Take care. Speak to you soon.